The reason you're a good traveler is because you're on time, so you don't miss a lot of flights.
Actually, I've missed so many flights in my lifetime. And you know what's funny? Like the first time, the second time, third time, I was shocked and had a moment, like a meltdown. And then now I'm just like, well, it happens. Monica, I miss the beach. I need the sea, the ocean.
Well, I think that the reason you're a good traveler is because you're on time, so you don't miss a lot of flights.
Actually, I've missed so many flights in my lifetime. And you know what's funny? Like the first time, the second time, third time, I was shocked and had a moment, like a meltdown. And then now I'm just like, well, it happens.
I missed one flight in my life. Thank God it wasn't an important, trip, and I could take a next flight the next day. But for people that travel, that must be like, you
Well,
miss a
no, and it's
connecting
like,
flight.
it's a domino effect too. Like I was thinking about this recently. I used to make my own connecting flights because it was cheaper. So I would buy a flight from one place to the next and then buy a separate flight from that place to wherever I needed to get to. Because that was a lot cheaper than buying a direct or like even a connection that the flight company makes for you. And so I've missed the first flight of that process, which means I missed two flights at once. So it's like I've had that happen to me and I'm like,
Oh, wow. Yeah, I hear, but then I hear stories of people that just like are having a glass of wine at the airport bar, and they just realize, damn, they missed the flight. That happened to my cousins. I'm like, were you guys not paying attention? I had to pick them out the airport. They're like, oh, we missed our flight. We're like, oh God.
I've done that too. That airport bar, it's always dangerous.
Okay, I think we have another participant.
Yep.
Is that your homegirl? Okay.
Yep.
Yes, I'm the girl. I'll just be listening.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, Melissa, take your icon off so that we can record the speaker view.
Can you guys like hide non-video participants?
Yeah, that's what. Okay, let me go over here.
You just gotta.
I think you have to pin them, right?
No, I don't know if on your end you see this, but I had and when you click the three dots.
Yeah, but I think she's off now. Okay, so she just muted her. I think we're good. Okay, Jo Franco. So you go by Jo or Joanna Franco?
Both, but Jo is like we cool. We're on that friendly level. So just call me Jo.
All right, Jo. I like that. All right, so you got this new show on Netflix called The World's Most Amazing Vacation Rentals. I'm definitely interested because, I Airbnb a lot. I'm living out in Southern California, even if we can't go too far, we'll rent out a house in the desert and stuff like that. So we always get there, does the place look like the pictures, or when we're looking at stuff, we want to see like a gem. We want to feel like we got this spot and we got like our money's worth and we have this little place, this oasis. How did you get involved with the show, and tell us a little bit more about the show?
So yeah, you understand the vacation rental world, and it's a world that keeps getting bigger and bigger because these are individuals creating these properties, right? Like these aren't hotel chains. Of course, people have gotten sophisticated with it. Like there's some Airbnb hosts that have multiple Airbnbs, but our show is exploring from budget properties to unique properties to luxury properties. What are the world's most amazing vacation rentals? So it's a really fun show. And even me, like I've lived the experience of shooting the show and doing the adventure, but watching it, it's like you really get to do it with us. And it's exciting because especially coming out of the pandemic is not over by any means, but I think we're starting to think about travel again. So the show is like the ultimate inspiration. Like get your notebook out, take the notes, because when you watch the show, you will literally want to book these properties, and they're available to book. So
are they? Because I saw the trailer and I'm like, okay, some of those places look so exotic and so like, I mean, are they really accessible?
Yes, I've actually gotten DMs on my Instagram of people sending confirmation pages of booking the snake house or the alpaca farm tree house in Georgia. Like these are very much available to the public. So I recommend everybody watch the show and plan their future vacations. But as far as how I got involved, so I've been traveling for the last decade. It's my lifestyle. It's in my blood. I'm from Brazil. So I grew up in between cultures, was never 100% Brazilian, was never 100% American. And then I always wanted to do something global. And I learned languages in school, and my dream was always to travel, but I was broke. So like, how do you travel when you're broke? I was undocumented for 12 years. So I was just kind of like getting myself ready, like learning the languages, studied international business in college. And then I started a YouTube channel back in 2012, traveling the world cheaply. And little by little, you start growing your audience, you start getting paid to go places. And by the time the show announced that they were casting and they invited me to do the casting, I was like, okay, I think everything I've done in my life has prepared me for this moment. So that's how I ended up on the show.
Well, look, you're a great host and you're great on camera. So obviously this is a career for you, but I'm interested in when you started doing the YouTube blog and you're saying you studied international business. I guess that was a proponent for traveling. Did you know that, or were you thinking, okay, let me set myself up to be some sort of TV personality?
I think things just fall into place as they should. I always say that you're going to get what you want, but just not how you thought you'd get it. I never actually thought I would be on TV. That was never my MO. I never expected to be somebody in the spotlight. I was always behind the scenes. And little by little, like these small moments happen in my life. Like some guy told me I would be great at broadcast journalism. And I'm like, what is that? And then I was invited to do an audition for the show 106 in Park, back in 2010. And I'm like, maybe I'll do this. But I grew up shy. I wasn't outgoing, like I had my head down. I did my work, but I would always get plucked to do these opportunities. And I'm like, this is kind of fun. And I feel like I could get good at this. So there is the career aspect of it where you're very much hosting, and that's like a skill set, especially because when you're filming something on YouTube, it's much different than filming something with a 20-person crew waiting for you to get your line right, So I think across the board, everything happened as it should, but I still woke up every single day in disbelief that I was there. Because growing up, this was not what I expected. Like I didn't expect to be sleeping on a luxury yacht in St. Martin in the Caribbean. Like that was not in my plan. So I'm very grateful, to say the least.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Connecticut. So from Rio, city, Rio. My mom moved us to a very tiny town in Connecticut. And I stayed there for 12 years, couldn't leave, no documents. And, like living that childhood immigrant story. And then we got the papers right before I got to college. So
you never traveled outside of this country till after you got the papers?
Yes. And that's what's crazy, that I was able to create this life for myself. Like at 17, 18, that's when I actually started traveling. So from 18 to I'm 28 now, I've been go nonstop, like trying to make up for the lost time.
Tell me more about this impetus to go out and travel, because you started traveling at 18, which was impossible. Not just like, I don't have the means. No, it was impossible for you to do before, right? And then you jump into it. Are you thinking about like, okay, my career, my personality, my path is going to involve traveling. I'm going to start taping it, or was it just like, oh, wow, hold on, I got papers. That means I can come in and out of this country. Let's book some flights. Let's book some trips. I need to do it.
It was a little bit of both. I definitely feel like when I had my hands on that American passport, I felt unstoppable. I'm like, I got to make use of this. And that's why I always highly suggest that anybody that doesn't have their passport, get your passport, because there's so many families dying for this document. That's a ticket. It's a golden ticket, especially the American passport. There are better passports, but the American passport is by no means a bad one. It's a great one. So when I got the green card and later the citizenship, I was like, this is my golden ticket. I can't let all the sacrifice go to waste. So there was that element of it. And then the other side was genuinely like, when you grow up in between cultures, at least all the friends that I know and all of the people that I speak to on the internet, we have this need to connect to the world because the world is inside of us. So maybe it's this need to find home. When people grow up in between cultures, they don't have this concrete idea of home, because for me, for instance, I'm Brazilian. When I go to Brazil, I'm American, and I'm here in the States and I'm Brazilian. And when I'm a foreigner, they might choose one or the other. So it's like, okay, if I'm not going to be from anywhere, let's be a little bit of everywhere, So that's kind of the feeling that I had within me that got me started on traveling and, learning new languages. Because I don't travel just to say I've been there. I really want to understand and make friends and learn the language, because that's what makes life fun and interesting.
Oh, yeah. Out of curiosity, what are some of the better passports that give you more access in the world right now?
Okay, so Swedish passport's amazing. Finnish passport was voted one of the world's best passports. It's those passports that you don't need many visas, or that the visa process is easy. The American passport's pretty solid, but a lot of the Scandinavian passports are the ones I'm like, do I need to get married to somebody?
Interesting, very interesting. And what are some of the favorite spots that you've traveled to over the past 10 years?
I love the places that have these wild stories. You know, I'm a big story person. Every place has its story. You just got to look for it and ask the questions. But for instance, like in the States, I love New Orleans so much. I think it's got such a unique, it's got dark history. Like by no means are these stories happy, but when you understand it, you get a sense of the people and the grit on the ground. Like you give them more respect when you know all the things that people have gone through in this place.
It's like a haunted place too. I've been to New Orleans. The whole city feels haunted.
There's so much history, you know, from slavery to the French bringing in convicts and prostitutes and nuns. Like this is how this city was created, was basically developed and colonized, where you're like, what? Why am I seeing Spanish street names with French architecture, with this African flavor? Like, what is this about? This is in New Orleans. So, you know, when people say the States doesn't have culture, that's the furthest thing from the truth.
Probably the first multiracial city really in the United States where it was just a collision of so many different cultures and races.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So anybody that hasn't gone to New Orleans, go to New Orleans. Around the world, places like Cuba, so interesting, so fast. So the most talent I have ever seen is in Cuba. Like you would walk into some random little bar and you're seeing this performance that should be on Broadway and you're paying $2 to see it. And that's the tourist price because the locals get it for like 50 cents. And I'm just sitting there in shock. I'm like, what? And it's just, you got to go and see it for yourself. It's spectacular. Other places, Japan, so beautiful. The preservation of the culture, of the identity, of the customs, the language is amazing too. I really love Finland. I love places in Africa, Egypt. I'm learning Arabic right now. I'll be going to Egypt. One of my best friends moved to Cairo. So I'm like, okay, I got to get my Arabic up to date so I can go there and like, you know, understand what's going on.
Now I gotta ask this for people, cause you know, when people see like the travel personalities of which you're one, and you've done a good job with a lot of your early stuff about how to do it on a budget. But I mean, people are thinking, okay, so how do I sustain a travel life? I mean, I have to work. Now I guess people can work remotely so they can take advantage of like, you know, working and still being on a trip. But it just seems like to the normal person, that's a weird way to put it, but you know what, like, it's so expensive that, yeah, I can go on a trip here and there, but can I travel as a lifestyle? Like these YouTube personalities like Jo Franco does?
So I always say there's a creative solution to every problem. So if you want to live a global lifestyle, there's a way to do it. I think what you said hits it on the head. Now we're entering this stage where people are working remotely. So if you have a remote job, there you go. You don't need to be stuck anywhere. You can rent an Airbnb for 4 months and just try out a town, a new country on. Something that I always recommend too, which is what I used to do, is work in exchange for housing. So there are programs like woofing, which is where you do agricultural work. So you could pick grapes in a vineyard in New Zealand and get housing and food for free. This is something you can do over the summer, right? Like a working holiday. Or you can teach English abroad, and that will give you the income that you need to stay there and to live a different experience. So
teaching English abroad is a job that I have heard a lot of people who want to get out of the country and just travel. So that's something that you could do in pretty much any country, right?
Pretty much any country. There are certifications. You can even get Groupons to do these certificates. Like, this is the world that we're living in. If you want something, pop it into Google and you'll get your results. So the biggest barrier, I think, is that it's people not knowing these resources exist. Another way to travel for free, in a sense, like, sure, you're going to need to pay for your flight, but there's this organization called Couchsurfing. So I've done that in the past too, where you find people that are a part of this community, and it's really a global community of people who want to share and exchange, but you could stay for free on someone's couch, right? And then you're like meeting this new person, they're becoming your guide, but this is a great option for the budget traveler. There are millions of options.
Okay, now you seem really brave and you seem like you can handle yourself a lot. Oh, so one thing that keeps a lot of people from traveling, aside from the budget and all that kind of stuff you just addressed, is sometimes they're just nervous and scared. You know, they feel, even if they're in a country that is thought of as safe, they still feel scared. If they're in, and sometimes they'll go to a country and they'll think, oh, is it a dangerous country? Like you mentioned Cuba. I'm Cuban. I went back to Cuba. I actually felt really safe, even though it's a very poor country. I felt super safe. Now it helps that I speak Spanish and I have Cuban family and all that kind of stuff. But what do you think about the fear factor for some people?
I think Cuba is one of the safest places I've ever been, actually. So a note on that. Interesting. When it comes to fear, what is life without a little bit of fear, you know? Come on, that's not living. But I was scared in the beginning stages of my travels, and you just have to take the leap. I think planning and research helps a lot. Have your tools in your toolkit, right? Like do your research, connect with local people. If people are really nervous and they're traveling alone, I always suggest going on a group trip. Maybe you want to find a cooking experience that it's like a culinary trip or a yoga and meditation retreat. Like that's what I do when I'm alone. I love solo travel, and solo travel as a woman, that's like as dangerous as it gets. But I felt safe because I've booked these experiences where I get in and I'm immediately surrounded by new people that later become friends. So doing some research helps, picking places that have low crime rates, being smart, getting all of your ducks in a row as far as like travel insurance, all of that. I have a video on my YouTube channel about that, of all of these safety tips that I've learned over the course of my career. And bad things have happened to me. This is the thing that I always tell people. I got shot. Like I have a bullet inside of my back right now. I got shot while traveling in Brazil, of all places, where I was supposed to be raised. So this happened back in 2017, and I was traveling for Carnival, and then I happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. It wasn't targeted, and this happened to me, and luckily I'm alive to tell the tale. And I remember that was a moment where I could have easily been like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to travel. I'm shutting it down. Or even said, I don't want to go back to Brazil, right? But I went back home. I reflected, and I'm like, if I have this thing holding me back from what I genuinely want to do with my life, then the fear has won. And I don't want to live a life where my fear wins. That's not living.
You have a great attitude about it. So on the show, there's a bunch of places that you don't look like you'd be afraid to go to. But they still seem kind of adventurous to get to. You guys are flying on helicopters. You guys are, going to all these places that seem very isolated and all that stuff. So getting there seems like an adventure, but when you get there, it seems like, oh my God, it's beautiful. Tell me a little bit about the other cast. You guys have a great rapport. How do each one of you have a certain expertise?
So Megan is in charge of picking the budget category of properties, but she's a DIY designer. She's very visual. She's a great cook. So it's really nice to travel with people that have different interests because, she had me trying different foods and looking at design in a way that I normally wouldn't see. Then there's Luis, who's the real estate expert, but also picks the luxury categories because he's sold luxury real estate for the last few years. So across the board, personality wise, like we're as different as it gets. I think that is the magic of the show because we all bonded in the way that we're all excited to experience things. But I don't know if you watched the American Adventure episode. We're doing this crazy climb and it was Luis's property. We had to get on a helicopter, fly to the top of this Alaskan glacier, got off the helicopter, clipped into the side of this mountain where we're climbing what's called a via ferrata, which in Italian means iron road, but it's essentially the system of climbing extreme terrain that was developed in World War II for soldiers in the Swiss Alps to kind of get around through these small, tiny villages inside of mountain towns. But now it's like a recreational climbing experience. So we did this. And I remember when I knew we were going to do this, I was nervous. To the point where I'm like, guys, I don't really want to do, like, I kind of want to back out. So yes, I'm brave, but I'm still nervous, right? And then Luis is like, Jo, we got to do it. And then Megan is always down. So when you see your friends be excited, you're like, I can't back out. This is like the best form of peer pressure.
Amazing. Yeah, the show looks awesome. So what do you guys hope comes out of the show? Just a lot more travelers and a lot more people maybe developing properties for vacationers, like what Airbnb has kind of like spurred the past few years?
What I personally hope that people get from the show is excitement about seeing the world. It's that push, the motivation to step out of their comfort zone. It's the creativity to look in places they might not have thought to look. Most of my properties were remote, off the grid, not in a major city. I did have a few in major cities. Like I picked a property in Miami, which was wild, but most of mine are like in the cut, right? And so I hope that excites people about thinking a little bit further away from where most people normally go. And in general, personally, as a traveler, my favorite part is learning, right? And in the show, we really tried to sprinkle in facts and tidbits. So people are watching and they're excited, but they're also learning with us. And I don't see travel as this luxury thing. It can be, of course, but I see it as a way to learn. It's like a way to develop your mind, meet new people, change your perspective, just be a more evolved person. So that's what I hope that people get from the show. And then to take it one further, I hope they go out there and do it themselves.
Awesome. I think that I'll be one of those people. And it's a great show to binge like with a glass of wine. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
we could be enjoying that. Thank you so much for the interview. I'll definitely be checking out the rest of the series. And I know a lot of our viewers will. And by the way, so you right now own the record for the guest that logged on the earliest on a Zoom call. 8 minutes early. I never do that I was just setting up. I'm like, let me just bring it up, which I never do. So you probably, any other time, you probably would have been waiting for me until like a minute before. So you're the earliest, and I count Brazilians as honorary Latinos, basically. So you're the earliest Latina that I've ever interviewed in my life.
Amazing. I mean, that's how I stay on track for those flights, all those check-in times. Like, I'm there.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Jo Franco. You can see your YouTube page. You got a YouTube page on your own, and then you also got Damon and Joe. And then, of course, on Netflix, you have the world's most amazing vacation rentals. And hopefully I run into you at the airport sometime.
Yay. And I'm on Instagram too. That's where I'm most active. So Jo_Franco on Instagram.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Jo.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Happy travels.
Cool. Should I leave?